On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, yes, the Avalanche season has been over for a few days now, but how are we doing? Let's check in with one another. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche, Instagram, and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, LockedOnAvalanche@gmail.com. And make sure you're following us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you are subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very wonderful podcast that we have for you today and every day. All right, sir. So, yeah, we're going to get into some off-season stuff, what we're looking forward to for the Avalanche and free agency, not necessarily who they're going to sign. We're not there yet. So we'll wait till the season completely comes to an end. And like we normally do in the offseason, go through each position, who's available, who we like, who we don't like. And then a little bit later, I messed around and found out with the cap-friendly roster maker, whatever they want to call it. But I did it in just an interesting, not an interesting way. I just did it in a specific way. And couldn't they make this work with what they have? I'll leave you with that, and then we'll get to that a little bit later on. But where we're going to start, sir, is this is. I mean, we've done one show post-season completion of the season, I guess, but now that it's set in a little bit, like, how are we feeling? Do we feel like there was more left on the table for the Avalanche, or do we feel like that's probably as far as they were going to get for a number of reasons? It's just as good as they were. They ran into one of the best teams in Dallas. Combination of all of those things, like, just check in with yourself and how are you doing? Few days removed from the Avalanche season coming to an end.
I love that you're asking me that question after you talk to me about how you're manipulating cap friendly. This is how we're handling the postseason, everyone. And like, honestly, I agree with you. I feel like the Avalanche, especially like if you're looking back at the narrative going into this series and coming out of the Winnipeg series, the Avalanche, they are the highest scoring team, blah, blah, blah. That's what they've done all year long. But looking back at this Dallas series with 3 games with 1 goal, and that last game only mustering 1 goal, and they had 5 when their back was against the wall the first time. And the second time, you can only manage 1 goal and it's aggravating. Yes, there's so much left on the table because now I feel like I'm going to slip down a deep, dark hole of what if they just pushed just a little bit, had a stellar game, or just a step up from this player. Could it have been 2? Could it have changed? Because you let Dallas just score like crazy. There were games 3 and 4. It was just lifeless. And if you could have just pushed just a little bit more, and that's, honestly feel like that's how I'm going to be sitting this entire offseason is, what if? What could have happened if 3 and 4 didn't exist, and maybe just one more extra push at some point in that final game?
I think you're right in the fact that you're only getting 1 goal in a number of games, when the series prior you put up, you were just scoring at will against the best goalie in the league for this year. So it just leaves you like, yeah, the what if is absolutely there, and the more on the table is absolutely there. But it, like, I don't know if it's just because, like I said in the last episode, when you've been, well, I'm in my early 40s, you're almost there, and you've been watching sports as long as, like, we've been watching sports, like, you kind of, I don't want to say accept it, but you kind of move on from it a little bit quicker, because this is usually the end result for most seasons, no matter what sport you watch and no matter what team you follow. But not only that, I think it's a little bit easier when you are not the clear-cut best team. Those seasons are hard for like to get over when you are top notch, however many points above the team behind you, President's Trophy, whatever. Like, you're the expectation is through the roof, and then you don't win. Those ones you feel like that's a total missed opportunity. Where the Avalanche were this year, a good team. They were a good team, and then I was going into the offseason when it's like they're not head and shoulders above everybody else, but that doesn't mean they can't make a run and can't do it. Things have to fall in line for them to do it, and that didn't happen. So it didn't come. So I'm kind of okay with it, because while the expectation of, yes, you're playing for a championship every year, I just thought there was some things stacked against them that were going to prevent them from doing it. And did it go the way I wanted it to go? Of course not. Of course not. But I think it's just a little bit easier to take when you can look at the league and be like, wow, like, yes, okay, there's teams that are obviously better than you. You can beat them, but it's tough. It's tough. And the Avalanche just didn't have those it factors for this season to overcome that stuff.
And see, I'm going to flip this back around on you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it so easy to accept? I know kind of the answer on the first half, but why was it so easy to accept a move on the Seattle bounce last year? And I know the answer is the injuries. You just knew they couldn't. It was hard to overcome. But then you look at this roster, top to bottom, with Jonathan Drouin and Casey Mittelstadt and Zach Parise and Ross Colton and Miles Wood and Sean Walker and everything he gave the Avalanche this year. And you saw that blip of Kovalenko, that Haley's Comet that Avalanche fans have been looking for in the Winnipeg series. It all put together, like, looking back, why couldn't this team just push? Why is it you're looking back when this roster's all done and everybody's saying thank you and you're seeing all the thank yous on social media, you're just like, this team should have been stellar. They should have run amok through the playoffs.
So I'll start with last year, Seattle. That one did sting, because I mean, you were expected to really kind of walk over them. Sure, injuries came into play. You had the Cale Makar stuff with, he was suspended because of the hit. You had all that stuff. But that one did hurt. I'm not gonna lie. That one hurt probably more so than this Dallas one does. It did. And this year, to answer your question of like, why couldn't they go further? And I'm not using it as an excuse, but I mean, they're human beings here, and that are going to be affected by a teammate like Val Nichushkin going and doing what he did. That is not like, that hurts you. That really hurts you. And yes, that is what it is. But I feel like I said, I think the Avalanche had a good team. And you listed all those guys that they brought in, Mittelstadt and Sean Walker, I thought was great. Yakov Trenin, I thought was great. They brought in good guys. They had a good team. They didn't have as good a team as the teams above them, like Dallas, who they are better teams than you. So I'm not trying to sit here and say like the Avs were not good and couldn't compete. If we're going to sit here and say Dallas is the best team in the West, or one of the top two teams in the West, well, you took them to 6 games and they needed double overtime to eliminate you. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And that's where I'm saying you needed things to go your way. And what needed to go your way was a bounce here or there where you put home a goal in that double overtime, and now you're pushing them to 7 games. That's really good. That's really good. So I don't want to sit here and say, I mean, I guess let's throw out is the season a failure comment. Do you feel like the season is a failure? Like, I think the Avalanche, we're all talking about the window. And this is, they've got a championship in this window, which is great. Now, just because, fans and media is insatiable, they want more than just one. And I completely get that. The players want more than just one. And I think the Avalanche are in that window of, we want championships. So with that in mind, would you label this season as a failure?
I will say, I'll give you my answer in just a minute because I feel like it leads also into our next topic.
Keeping them hanging, Shaggy Von Doom. That's what I like about you, sir. All right, let's do that. Let's get our first break in, and then Kyle will answer that question. Is this season categorized as a failure for the Colorado Avalanche? Let's do that. Coming up next. All right, let's hear from Policy Genius. It's the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $229 per year for $1 million of coverage. And some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. And your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. And even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. All right. So we left off going into that break about is the season a failure question. And Kyle, like he does so well in the world of media, dangled the carrot. Let's hear it, sir. What do you think?
Well, how about I hit you with something twice? I'm going to take out both your knees with this one. This season was a failure twice.
Okay. Why is that?
This offseason, we had the acquisitions of Ryan Johansson, and we had Tomas Tatar as a member of this team. And we've already had to course correct from the offseason we had last year and putting this team together. It wasn't working. And also, let's little Wayne's World transition here. Bowen Byram was a member of this team as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you moved on from Bowen Byram. And guess what? The New Jersey Devils just had a nice little fanfare for re-signing one Curtis McDermott.
We're not going to sit here and say that's a loss, are we? I mean, Curtis McDermott was fun to root for, but I don't feel like anybody's looking at that being like, I wish that was us.
No,
I'm not.
The Devils are thrilled with him because he fits what the Devils are doing.
Well, he fits because the Devils play the Rangers, and Matt Rempe is a problem for them.
That's called punch counter punch.
Sure. Literally, no, it makes all the sense in the world for them to do that.
Literally and figuratively. And Bowen Byram, honestly, I think he's going to thrive. And in
Buffalo, yeah, I think he's going to do fine in Buffalo. And what you got for him is a hole that you needed. So the move made sense.
And you look at this team and everything around it, and you mentioned in the first segment the absence of Val Nichushkin. Mm-hmm. This is shame on us thrice after Seattle this season already, and then now with a hot test in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. The team around just crumbled to the ground with the absence of one player in the locker room, and you can't rise up just a little bit. Like,
well, it's tough, man. It's tough.
We still have not heard what's going on with Mikko Rantanen. Let's not get too far into the offseason without addressing, like, he was asleep the entire Dallas series. I understand he had the one lone goal in Game 6, but that was not typical, normal Mikko Rantanen.
Right.
And we needed a little bit more out of Nate, and it just did not come in that Dallas series. He was more frustrated than anything. And with what you saw against Seattle the year prior, do you feel, I'm flipping this back on you, Chris, do you feel this offseason addressed the lapses they had in Seattle, and why is this still an empty season?
You mean do I feel like they addressed it in last season leading into this season?
Yes, both times through the
Well,
deadline and off season.
I mean, now is the time to look back and ask that question. So, I mean, it's twofold. Like I always look at it as like, how did we feel at the time? And I say that for all the teams that I root for. Like when they make a move, how did you feel? Did you like it or did you not like it? Like the Russell Wilson thing. We all loved the Russell Wilson move when it happened. And if you say you didn't, you are flat out lying. We all loved it. We can look back now and be like, and everybody's like, oh, that's maybe the worst move in Broncos history. Fine. If you want to say that now, go ahead and say it. But you were not thinking that the time of. And that's kind of what you can do with like the Ryan Johansson thing, right? Like when the move was made, I kind of liked it. I liked his side. I know he didn't have the speed. We did the crossover with Locked On Predators, and they were kind of sad to see him go. They thought he was going to perform well. It just those things, like there are things that just don't fit. So you can look back and say, like, yeah, and you mentioned Tomas Tatar. There's another one that just didn't fit. Although I thought he was playing a little bit better, starting to pick it up a little bit. But whatever, you traded him for a 5th round pick or 6th round pick, whatever you got for him, and you move on. So but the question of like, the season is a failure. I think the Avalanche definitely look at it like that. And how I was saying in the beginning of not feeling like this team was as good as the teams above them, they still feel like they could have beat them. They still feel like they could have beat Dallas. They still feel like they could have went on to at least, Stanley Cup final and see what happens. They do. I can guarantee you they feel that way. And they feel like it is, another season of a missed opportunity to go further than they did. And now you have to ask the questions because it's going to be a crazy offseason for the Avalanche. And the two things that are going to be glaring for them, number one is Val Nichushkin, without a doubt. 1, 2 is him and Gabe Landeskog. And what's Gabe Landeskog's health looking like? And that is going to be watched closely. That's going to be monitored closely. And I don't think you're going to hear a ton out of the Gabe Landeskog camp in the offseason until we get close to like training camp. And then because I don't feel like they're going to tip their hand on how he's really doing. But the Nichushkin stuff is going to be soap opera television and must see. And I know there's people out there that feel like just get rid of him. Or I think it was, let me get to it was Vargar who posted something. He said Corey Perry's contract was terminated on the grounds of inappropriate behavior. I do the same with Val. I think the Avs have grounds after the last 2 playoffs to terminate him after the 6 months with no cap implications. It's been said that the Avalanche cannot do that. This is not grounds for termination. I know he's saying like, oh, file a grievance or something like that. My feeling and take on it is because he is in the players program, that is accepted from the league, from the players, from the team. And I think buried within the rules there in somewhere is that is not, you cannot terminate because of that. What Corey Perry did was completely different than what, and I think it was substance related, but he was not in the players program, which everybody accepts. Like when they're in, when you go into the players program, you accept all the things that come with it, which apparently is you cannot terminate a contract. They could with Corey Perry because he was not in the program and it came out of nowhere and they had the rights to do that. So I think that's the biggest difference between Corey Perry and Val Nichushkin. So what the Avs do with him will be a fascinating watch this offseason.
And you figure the Avalanche management, the front office, is going to be looking at both these players, Nichushkin and Landeskog, not just what they're going to bring when they come back, whether it's health, contribution, trust, but it's also going to have a little bit of a dollar value tied to it as well. Because when they come back, you have to pay that player what they're owed. And then is Landeskog comparative to his peers? You could do all the advanced analytics you want. Is he worth the contract you're about to pay? And is there another conversation that needs to be had? Because is Gabe Landeskog at 40% going to be worth the money? Because the Avalanche do not have a lot of money. And when it comes to putting a team together, is Landeskog, whatever he does, whatever he comes out of this whole 3-year rehab stint, is that going to be enough to quantify the money you're paying for this on the ice, is that's going to be enough a piece on your team? That I don't think so. I can honestly say right now. And Val Nichushkin, do you want to pay all that money for a fourth chance to see what happens? Because you can't do that gamble again this year and have that derail the morale and the trust and the team and the optics in another season. It's just the money it's just not there right now.
I'll get to the money. I did a quick cat friendly thing. I'll get to that because it is kind of interesting, but there's some subtext chiming in here that I wanted to get to. This is Easton. It said the depth was better this year, but just didn't quite have enough. Val leaving for the second year in a row has to be so deflating in the locker room. I don't imagine he comes back. It felt like we were right there, just didn't quite have enough. I think Mittelstadt did pretty well for his first year of playoff hockey, and Georgie bounced back well. Would have liked more from the top guys, but it's not like they didn't score points in both series. The season still stings, but we have nothing to be excited. But we have nothing to be excited about next year. Why? I would be excited about next year. I mean, where this team is and the all-stars that they have, like I would still be excited about it. Is with our top dogs and top 4D locked up, and the promising 2C window is still open. So maybe you said we still have things to look forward to. I don't know. Correct that, Easton. But let me know exactly what you meant on that.
If he intends it as written, I kind of in that camp now. What are we getting excited for? What are we chasing? Are we Toronto in the West?
No, you've proven you've won. So no, you're not. If you haven't won, then yeah, you're still not Toronto. You're still not Toronto in the West, even if you haven't won, because you have not gone as long as they have with winning nothing. But that goes. I think the excitement is not to cut you out. The excitement is your core guys are still young, like your McKinnon and Makar and Mikko. While I know it's the last thing that you think of Mikko is these playoffs. Dude still scored over 100 points this season. You know what I mean? Like he is one of the better players in the league. We'll see if something was there where he just didn't seem to have it in the postseason as we expected him to, but he's still a great player. You know, it's just, you have guys that get you excited. You do. I think that's just the reality of the situation.
And just the quick rebuttal is the core is exciting, but the support is what won everything in 2022.
100%. And that's where this team is, you know, that's what happens when you have a team like this. You lock your core up, and then there's a rotating cast of depth guys, and you have to hit those depth guys right.
Yeah.
And when you do, you go far. And when you don't, you don't. So that's what it's going to be this offseason for the Avalanche. What do they do with those depth guys? But maybe not even just those depth guys. There might have to be a guy that you have signed, and I don't know who that guy is, that you might have to let go because the numbers just don't mesh well. And I want to talk about that. We'll do that coming up next. eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you are into speed, power, or style, which is called what, Mr. Sullivan?
The Nathan MacKinnon trilogy.
That's right. eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. And with all of the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right. So, yeah, like I said, it's going to be a pretty wild offseason for the Avalanche. What to do with the cap. They have a number of roster spots that they have to fill and not a ton of money to do it with. They're just shy of about $16 million in salary cap. If Gabe Landeskog comes back, that's $7 million right off the top. If they do bring back Val Nichushkin, that is 6.125 right back on the cap. that soaks up almost all of it right there. And you have, like every team does, a lot of free agents that you can either decide to sign or not sign, because the majority of them, actually, like almost all of them, are unrestricted. So you can let a lot of these guys walk or bring them back for pretty cheap, because none of them were super expensive, save for one, Jonathan Drouin, who is going to demand an increase. So what I did was I went to Cap Friendly, and they have I'm sure a lot of people have messed around with their roster editor thing. And I did that. But the way I did it was I didn't sign any unrestricted free agents. I just used all of the Avalanche roster players currently under contract. And the only one I signed is their only restricted free agent in Casey Mittelstadt.
Yeah.
Everybody else that's unrestricted, I let walk. So what does this mean? This means a lot of youth got brought up. So this is what it looks like when I do this. You have Arturi Lehkonen, Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko, and we can argue the lines. I'm not, whatever. This is just what they are. Arturi Lehkonen, Mikko Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon, top three. I brought Gabe Landeskog back. Casey Mittelstadt, I signed him for $4.75 million. It's a little bit on the cheap end, but he's restricted. He does it at arbitration rights. But I think they go to him and be like, dude, like, we can't give you more. So maybe if you want to sign a shorter deal, we'll see. So I signed him for $4.75 million, and I brought Val Nichushkin back as well for now. Just put him in there for now. He is on the team for now. I put him back in there. Third line, I got Miles Wood, Ross Colton, and brought Logan O'Connor back from injury. And then your fourth line is Kovalenko, Jean-Luc Foudy, and Olausson. That is a kid line if I've ever seen one. So your entire fourth line is youth that gets brought up.
You know what? I think I like Maselli over McFarland. No, I honestly, no. I like that. With the exception of Valeri Nichushkin, because the gamble and the risk, and whatever Landeskog looks like coming out of this surgery, right? That doesn't make me feel as bad as I thought it would.
And you can swap out like some of these like low contracts, like Foodies or Olaussons or Kovalenkos. Those are all less than $1 million. You can go sign NHL players now for less than $1 million, right? So this is not. I'm not saying this is set in stone. This is just like what the Avalanche have now on their roster signed. That if you didn't go sign any unrestricted free agents, this may be what it looks like. But it just gives you an idea with the numbers and stuff like that, right? So let me get to the defense, and then we'll talk what's left. You got Taves and Makar, Sam Girard and Manson, and then your third pairing again. They're two young guns, Sam Malinsky and Sean Barons, who is freshly signed, who has zero experience. But this is if the Avalanche want to do, like, they need to get their youth going. You look back at their drafts since like 2018, 2019. And they're just, it's just a lot of empty roster spots. Nobody is. It's been 5 years really since anybody has really taken a role that's a rookie, that's a prospect. And are the Avalanche just going to keep having this revolving door of NHL depth guys, which is fine. You need that, or are you going to let your young guys really kind of like thrive and shine? And I get where the Avalanche are coming from, because you were talking like it was this, they're in win now mode. And if they were not, these guys are getting time. No doubt about it. They're getting time. But where the Avalanche are is like, we kind of want to play both sides of this. We want to get them time, get them acclimated to the pro game, but we got to win games. We got to get up in the standings. We can't get down in the standings and have these guys learn completely at the NHL level. So that's why you bring in like those depth guys. So, but that's what it is. And doing this, what's left in cap space is 1.574. So basically $1.5 million is what's left. And that is not having signed Jonathan Drouin, clearly. So what does that mean? Yeah, if they do something with Val Nichushkin, there's your money. And I don't think Jonathan Drouin is going to make $6.1 million.
No.
I don't think he's at that level, right? So, but that is enough money to go sign him comfortably. And then there's kind of, on the defensive end, do you let someone like Josh Manson go? I don't like that because I thought he had a very good year. He is your muscle on the defensive end. But do you or if you don't get rid of Nichushkin because the season has already started, he's not coming back to November minimally. So you got to figure out, you got to sign Drouin before that, clearly before the season starts. So you have to make a move to one of these other guys, like a Josh Manson or something like, or where or who? I don't know, man. It's gonna be tough.
Chris Maselli, I swear, let's put you on the ticket.
Solved it.
We could vote for you for president. This is the most like if I was near you, I'd kiss your little bald head right now. Because like to quote Lugia from the Pokemon movie 2000, this song has restored my strength. I honestly I think I've been caught up in looking back at this team and why it's not working and what do you do going forward, completely forgetting about the Colorado Eagles and just honestly compared to the Seattle bounce, the unreliance on call-ups this year. Like it's been so much a sign and just deal with from within that I really like this commitment and this push that you're making to utilize the youth. And you're talking about this soap opera offseason. This makes the training camp and preseason something to really like find a stream to watch because this might be where they have to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do a little bit of both. I think they will sign, some veterans for league minimum, right? For not a lot of money. But some of these guys, I'm just waiting to take the step.
Yeah, you're right.
Like Oscar Lawson. Come on, man. Like it's time. Same thing with Foodie. I know he battled injuries last year, and I liked him when he came up. But you got Kovalenko. You don't know what's going on with him. And I think on the defensive end, I think Sam Malinsky is ready to go. Like, I mean, I love Jack Johnson. I know he wants to play more. I don't know. I think you maybe go the Malinsky route there, and who knows with Sean Barons if what you're going to do with him. But I mean,
I think
it works. It works. But again, we go back to the Nichushkin stuff of they got to decide what they're going to do with him. If they're going to throw their weight behind him again, which will rub a lot of people the wrong way, but you can't buy him out. I think it's just too. I looked at the money on that. That's just a lot of dead money, especially I think in years 3 and 4. That's over $5 million against the cap for a dude that's not even playing. You can't afford that.
No,
you cannot afford that. So if you can find a trade partner that is willing to take that risk, go for it. Maybe it's a team that's not a playoff team, because that's where he seems to falter is when the playoffs come around. Who knows? I mean, anything is on the table right now with that, but we'll get answers to that stuff. Hopefully, well, we'll get them by the time the season next season starts for sure. But I think people want to know, like in the offseason, like what's the Avalanche plan with him? I think that is going to be the question every single time someone on the Avalanche does an interview in the suits. Anyway, that is going to be the question. Where do you guys stand with Nichushkin? And you will not get an answer until pretty late, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Avalanche fans need to keep an eye on Loveland and Denver for what this roster is going to look like, because they don't have the money to make moves anywhere else.
They don't. Yeah, it's twofold. They really don't have a ton of money, and it is time for some of these guys to really step it up. So we'll see what happens. All right, that'll wrap it up for today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That, like always, is very much appreciated. Should we get into start doing grades like right away? I don't see why not.
Well, either that, or we could get into a mailbag and get everybody else's opinions on how we're sitting.
That's a good idea. So we got a bunch of stuff planned for you guys for this offseason, like always. So stick around. We'll be back tomorrow with a fresh episode. But for this one, that is going to wrap it up. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. See you guys tomorrow.